This memoir, inspired by our triune God through the board of Guadalupe Media, is a reflective gift to the Diocese of Belize City and Belmopan as a reminder of the years of grace and heart of our spiritual leaders from 1910 through 2024, and hones in on the life and mission in particular of our dear departed beloved Bishop, Most Reverend Lawrence Sidney Nicasio.
Father Salvatore Di Pietro was a dominant Catholic figure serving in Belize. On the 16th of April, 1893, he was formally consecrated as bishop at age 62. Under Salvatore's tenure, St. John's College at Holy Redeemer would be founded. Being in the bishopric for 5 years, Salvatore Di Pietro would pass away on the 23rd of August, 1898.
Frederick Charles Hopkins would enter the Society of Jesus in September 1868 at just 23 years old. At age 32, he would be formally ordained as a priest. On 5th November 1899, he would be named the Bishop of British Honduras. He was one of the chief writers of the Angelus, a steady influence in educating the Catholic people on local and worldwide issues. Under Frederick's tenure, the building for St. John's College at Loyola Park was established on 16 July 1917. On 9th April 1923, while on a trip to a Corozal district mission by boat, Frederick would tragically drown on his way there.
Joseph Anthony Murphy was ordained as a priest at the age of 30. By 1905, Joseph Murphy went to serve on a mission in British Honduras. Later, on 19th of March 1924, Joseph would be consecrated as bishop. In 1938, Bishop Joseph Murphy would formally resign from his office as bishop.
William Aloysius Rice would enter the New York section of the Society of Jesus in 1911 at just the age of 20. William would arrive in Belize on the 18th of June 1939. On the 16th of April 1939, William was consecrated bishop. Under his bishopric, pioneering work of Marion M. Gainey, initiator of credit unions and cooperatives in Belize, the Fiji Islands, and the South Pacific, began. Bishop William Aloysius Rice would pass away from a sudden severe heart attack 28th of February 1946.
David Francis Hickey was ordained a priest on 27 June 1917. In 1926, at the age of 44, David came with a Belizean mission where he served as the headmaster of SJC, the Jesuit superior, and the vicar general. On 21 September 1948, he was consecrated as bishop at the age of 65. In 1957, he submitted his resignation from active service. He served as bishop for 9 years between 1948 and 1957.
Robert Louis Hodap in 1942 would be serving on a mission in British Honduras. On the 26th of June 1958, he would be appointed as Bishop of British Honduras. In September 1979, Robert gave his blessing and financial backing for Father John Maher, S.J., to start the monthly diocesan newspaper that is known as the Christian Herald, which is still published to this day. He would see Belize gain its independence. Later, in 1983, Belize would gain its only papal visit so far from Pope St. John Paul II. Later that year, on the 11th of November, John Paul II would accept Bishop Roberts' resignation from his post.
Born on December 4th, 1930 in Dungriga, Belize, Osmond Peter Martin would be ordained a priest on April 3rd, 1959. On the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, 1982, Martin was consecrated bishop at St. John's College. By April 2001, Bishop Martin had inaugurated the Monsignor Facundo Castillo Diocesan Center next to Holy Redeemer Cathedral in Belize City. Martin would see 13 new churches and chapels built and consecrated. In 2004, Martin commissioned John Marhefka Sold to work on starting a national Catholic radio station and Catholic Media Center, an organization which today is known as Guadalupe Media. Martin would retire on November 18, 2006.
Born on 15 November 1945 in Belize City, Doric McGowan Wright was raised as a child in British Honduras. On 14 April 1975, Doric was ordained a priest at the age of 29 years old. Decades later, at St. John's College in 2002, Father Doric would be consecrated the auxiliary bishop of the now independent nation Belize. In 18 November 2006, he was appointed to the office of Bishop of the Diocese of Belize City in Belmopan at the age of 61. During this time, on the 99th anniversary of the apparition of Our Lady of Fatima on 13 May 2016, over 8,000 attendees gathered at the Marion Jones Stadium in Belize City for the largest Eucharistic adoration and global living rosary event that took place in Belize. On 26 January 2017, Pope Francis would formally accept Doric's resignation from his office as Bishop of Belize City and Belmopan.
We're here for the ordination of our Bishop-elect Lawrence Sidney Nicasio.
I'm wondering if this gymnasium will be able to hold a crowd of thousands. Father Larry spent 14 years of his priesthood life in Orange Walk Town.
He has a great joy and also a great humility. He chose as motto, walk humbly with God, from the book of the prophet Micah.
Wanda Miss Sabani put her finger on the qualities of Father Larry, which is what really impresses me about any religious person. Father Larry is a humble person who is bent on doing God's work in our nation. We need inspiration from our religious leaders to follow Christ. Certainly we want material success. We need material success. But most of all, we need spiritual success. And I think Father Larry hopefully will provide us with that spiritual success.
The heart of each one of us participating in this celebration, as well as that of the entire church, is full of joy and gratitude to the Lord for what is taking place today, the Episcopal ordination of Monsignor Lawrence Sidney Nicasio as the 9th Bishop of the Diocese of Belize City and Belmopan. Do you, brother, for the sake of the Lord's name, to be welcoming and merciful to the poor, to strangers, and to all who are in need?
I do.
Do you resolve, as a good shepherd, to seek out the sheep who stray and gather them into the Lord's fold?
I do.
Do you, dear brother, resolve to pray without ceasing to Almighty God for the holy people, and to carry out the office of the high priest without reproach?
I do, with the help of God.
May God, who has begun the good work in you, bring it to fulfillment. Amen.
Lawrence Sidney Nicasio grew up in a Garifuna family. He would be formally ordained into the priesthood on June 16, 1989. On January 26, 2017, Father Nicasio would be appointed as bishop at the age of 60 years old. As a significant member of the Belize City Council of Churches, Bishop Nicasio would play a crucial role in its operations and spiritual guidance.
I met Bishop Lawrence Nicasio in the summer of July 2000. I had just graduated from high school. I started to feel the call to the priesthood. I went to see him in his office in La Immaculada Parish in Orange Walk. That was my first encounter. I would always remember his gentle smile. He received me into his office, and there we began to talk.
My name is Edward James Nicasio Jr. I'm age 21 and I'm from Dangriga.
I'm Desiree Nicasio Morgan. I'm 36 years old. Currently a lecturer at Stangrika Ecumenical Junior College. I've been teaching there for 14 years and counting.
As a child name, we used to call him Larry. Larry used to like to play in the yard. He plays marble. He used to play kite, and he spent a lot of time at home with my mom, assisting her with the chores, like washing plate, cleaning the house, cleaning the yard. He's always active, helping at home. From time to time, he would go to farm with my mom and my dad, and he enjoyed planting mangoes, crabo. He goes to school regularly with us. He'd be the one, we go out playing, but Larry would be the one to stay home and assist my mom as much as possible. From time to time, Father Lazarus Augustine, who was elder than him, who was already started the priesthood life, used to go to our home and visit my brother. And Lazarus had a similar kind of life like my brother. Back home, we would call it, you don't see them much hanging out, but rather spending time by themselves. That was one of his main players that comes to the house and visit him from time to time, and he would go to visit him in Lakeland area of Dangriga. And based on those, I can see where he was, heading. From there, shortly after high school, my brother got a teaching job, Holy Ghost School. One of those schools he started teaching.
And it was a good experience. I keep telling myself I was too young, but at the same time I learned very quickly.
I started teaching at Sacred Heart 1967. The principal had this practice of putting in new teachers with an experienced teacher. That's how he ended up under my care. He is supposed to observe me, what I do, how I do it, etc. When I would go by the blackboard there to just look at him teaching, he would just freeze. What I used to do, I used to have to do it surreptitiously. So I just go keep and listen. But after a while, he got used to me. And he was a very good teacher, but he was very strict, disciplinarian.
So I've known the bishop since he was, I would say, a teenager. He was probably 17, 18 when he started teaching at Holy Ghost school. So we were on the same staff. Then we went to Belize Teachers College the same year. We finished our 2 years of Teachers College and we went back to do our internship at the Holy Ghost school. We attained a friendship throughout. I left Holy Ghost in 1980, and I was surprised to learn that the bishop started his diaconate program at or around that same year, like in 1981. So we indirectly left at the same time.
We were in the seminary together. I was ahead of him. When I was in my third year of theology, I believe he was just entering. I encountered him when I was a deacon for the first time when I was assigned as a deacon to San Antonio in the Toledo district. I recall myself and Father Caetano were visiting the villages, and I encountered him in one of the classrooms there. He was teaching down at, I think it was in Pueblo Viejo. And that's when he told me that he was going to the seminary the following year. So that meant that he would have entered the seminary when it was in my last year as a deacon, and he was beginning as a first year philosophy.
So when I was offered to move up to the second year of philosophy, I was going to skip my first year, and I said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And it was my best decision looking back. The class I joined my first year, I think was the best class for those 4 years I was in philosophy school.
So were you from a big family?
I'm from a family of 6. There's 6 of us, three brothers and 2 sisters.
The eldest one, Nelson, who had died recently, then Bishop Larry, then me, which is Herbert, then Nicholas, then 2 younger sisters, Agnes and Marcella.
He was pretty much a quiet person. In the evenings, after 9 o'clock or so, a few of us always gather in the dining room just to converse, eat, and have some soft drinks and delicacies and so forth. And he was always there, ready to serve and to be helpful and try to make the occasion a meaningful one. After Father Laz, he took over the role of bell ringer, in the sense that early morning, he would ring the bell to summons us to rise and to get ready for morning prayer. He assumed a bit of leadership there in that particular role at retreats. When I was stationed in San Nicasio, a few times he came to St. Heart Parish to celebrate Sunday morning Mass. But he had to hurry back to get back to Belmopan to have his own morning Mass there as Our Lady of Guadalupe.
I was given the opportunity to visit the different parishes, and I remember spending a few weeks in Dangriga, going to celebrate Mass in St. Bite for an overnight trip. And my first 2 years in Belmopan went really well with Father Laz. Augustine was there. But after 2 years, Bishop Martin asked that I be transferred to Orange Walk, the Immaculata Parish.
Well, we don't call him Bishop in Orange Walk. We usually call him Father Larry. But we mean more than Bishop. He was a person that Orange Walk loved so much. Orange Walk prayed for him up to today.
We Dave and Flavia here. We've been married for 38 years. We had 4 children, and presently we have 3 grandkids. In Orange Walk, we have families. That's what I think makes Orange Walk very special, is that Orange Walk has families that have a history. And because we are Catholics, we have that strong influence too about marriage is a sacrament. And because it is a sacrament, it's something that needs to be supported, encouraged, and even made visible to people. And so when they met me, I was a teacher and I taught at a Catholic high school, so going to church was the most normal thing to do. That's what I inherited. And so when we went to live in Belize City for me to study, I went to do my bachelor's at University of Belize, then called University College of Belize, and Belize City opened their arms to us. We had prayer group fellowship with a group. We got involved in the marriage ministry to help us stay together, because if you don't do something to stay together, believe me, I've got glimpses of it. The easiest thing would be to just walk out. I went to Belize City for 2 years, Dave, myself, and my kids. And when we came back, we didn't have these support groups whereby we can continue. So I remember very clearly that we wanted to continue what had started in Belize City. And so when we came to Orange Walk, that's when we had our pastor, which is Father Larry. Father Larry Nicasio, he was our new pastor. We met him on 95. And that's when we said, Father Larry, you know what? We have this idea, and what do you think about it? You know, in his very simple and very pastoral way. Well, go and do the work, you know. And that's when we started our journey in Orange Walk as a married couple, wanting something more than just having kids, having a job, having a house, but we wanted fellowship.
When I got there, it was Rumble Town. Some things were happening, and even my parents were not pleased when I told them that I was going to Orange Walk because of everything that was coming out of Orange Walk at that time. There, I trusted God, and I felt I got a real good welcome everywhere I went. I wasn't even fearful, even though we say that you're living in Rumble Town. I didn't sense that.
He was instrumental in having Orange Walk have the marriage and family life as a ministry. It was to help the entire families, marriages, because to be in a union, it is not easy. And what I love of Father Larry was that, you know, he would present us with what we need to do. Then from there, we have our work cut out. He's not going to tell you much. You need to go and plan, sit down, pray, find out where you want to go. After you do all of this, you enter into a second meeting with Father Larry, how you will execute. And one memory I have, if you hear Father Larry says, you know, it meant really need to change, right? And if you hear Father Larry says, aha, right, and smile, then you know that you're on the right way. And this is where, you know, it all started off, that we started to work with Father Larry. We started to work with a group here in Joab, make a group here in Joab. After a certain time, we saw that, okay, we love where we are going as a group. And we started to dress up the group with what we're going to do, which areas we're going to cover, and eventually we had a group here in Orange Walk.
And throughout the service of God's people, I see the transformation of Orange Walk, greater involvement of lay people in the life of the church, the lay ministers.
Very active, aren't they, as a lay community?
The lay ministers, it was so inspiring. As I keep telling people, the people have been inspiring. They inspire me by their dedication, their commitment, their faith, their patience when it comes to serving God and God's people.
And I really appreciate that of our bishop, because his life reflects one thing: he pastored his sheep. And you can see it in the annals. If you go to the annals, you will notice, you know, in the 2017 when he was ordained in Belize, buses upon buses upon buses of Orange Walk Kenyans were there to see their pastor become a bishop, ordained, you know, and to be a part of that huge celebration. What could make the people of Orange Walk want to go and see this new bishop? who was their pastor. It got to be that the humbleness, the way, the meekness that he walked, the spiritual uplifting that he did for the people. And one more thing, Orange Joak reciprocated, love this pastor to the day of today. You can go in any house in Orange Joak and you will see how much the people revere this bishop.
I just want to say this, Wanda. I can remember for the Christmas times when we were in Orange Joak and Father Larry would come to our home and we would tell our youngest child, Hayir, at the time he was probably 2 years old, and we would tell him, Father Larry is coming today to visit us for Christmas. So he would be by the window waiting for Father Larry. Now, to our surprise, when Father Larry would come, he would run outside and say, "Is Jesus coming? Jesus is coming, Jesus is coming." And Father Larry would hug him and bring him home. No? And so we have stayed with that concept of Father Larry, that Jesus is coming. He has done an excellent, great job in Orange Joak. He is so loved in Orange Joak. The people cherish him. And we don't only cherish him, we are here to also nurture him. So we are happy for Father Larry.
To go to church this morning and to still listen that we are praying for his soul. That's a gift that he left here in Orange Joak. It's a beautiful gift because if we can have more priests and we are praying for a bishop, that is very pastoral. Feed my sheep, you feed your sheep. Tend to my sheep, you tend to your sheep. We do know, and they know it, that there are wolves and we need to be tended to. We need to be guided, we need to be pastored.
We came to Belize City when I was stationed at St. Ignatius, and I recall Bishop Martin assigned him to John Vianney. I got to see him and talk with him. At St. Ignatius, that quiet attitude was manifested. He was not a person who would sit around and talk for a long time. He would talk for a little while and then he'd go to his room and his own readings and whatever he had to do, and that was it.
So during my years as seminarian, he was very supportive of me. He always was encouraging me, reminding me that he's been praying for me as I was studying in St. Louis Kenrick Glenn Seminary. When I finished, first of all, I was ordained a transitional deacon. I remember he was a MC. He guided the liturgy, the Mass of Ordination in La Immaculada. Then the following year, 2009, when I was ordained a priest of the diocese, again, he was very supportive. He was the MC, Master of Ceremonies of the diocese. And from then on, we started to build on our friendship as brother priests. Year 2009, I was assigned at Holy Redeemer. We were close in the city to interact and build up our friendship as brother priests. It was not until 2013 that he was assigned at Holy Redeemer. I was still at Holy Redeemer as associate pastor. He came in as the rector of the cathedral. I was with him for 2 years and we started to get more friendly, started to work together. That year I felt really comfortable with him. We started to support each other in our ministry, also in fraternal support, love, and so forth.
Okay, so you were pretty young amongst the Belizean men who were becoming priests. I'm thinking of Father
yes,
Agustin and Avila
you see, I was
Gomez and all those guys.
I was then the baby priest.
Okay, you were the last of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a gap after you as well, huh?
Yes.
Those 2 years was very significant for me. I got to know more than Father Larry. We shared a lot of experiences, especially him as a senior priest, and we started to build on. And then I was transferred to Belmopan in 2015. I missed him when I was transferred. I was alone at Belmopan. I started to focus on building up my parish in Belmopan. We still kept in touch. I came to the city, stopped by. He had a lot of friends in Belmopan. He would just stop by. And when he was appointed as the 9th Bishop of Belize, and he was ordained and then took over the office, he called me and said, "I need you to work with me." Immediately brought me on board. I became one of the consultors. He asked me to take down notes, not formally as the secretary, but I started to take down notes. Immediately he started to ask me to accompany him to international trips. The first one was that same year in 2017. We went to official visit to the Nunciatura in El Salvador. I remember that trip. I guess he was a bit concerned with his Spanish. He knew Spanish well, he could converse in Spanish, but he felt comfortable with me, with him, and I knew El Salvador back then. So we went, we had a good time. We visited several places there with the nuncio. It was the late Archbishop Kalenga. He visited Belize, of course. Then later on, we had other trips abroad, Mexico City. We went to Guatemala City, the US also. And we started to build on, and he trusted me a lot with the cares of the diocese, discussing matters of the diocese. So it started to be more closer to him during his episcopal ministry. Up to the last breath that he had, I was with him.
My father, Edward Nicasio Sr., was Bishop's first cousin. They were cousins, but people used to mistake them for brothers. They actually look like brothers. They look alike. I can remember as a child, we used to call him Father Larry. I was 6 years old, and my father used to always joke around with him. So you want to be a priest, Larry? You know? And he just had this calmness about him, very humble individual. And he would just smile, you know. My father, why do you want to be a priest? You can't have any woman, you know. But that's my choice, Edward, you know. And he had that calm voice. I've been around him since I could remember 6 years old. And I could always remember his smile, his voice.
Exactly, because there were 4 of us older than the younger ones. So I was given early responsibility to help out with the younger ones with school, as well as homework, and also getting ready for school. Okay. So allowing my parents to do that, I was able to help out with my little brother, my little sister, trying to try as best to go together. Which was a short walk to Sacred Heart School.
I grew older, I went on my own, and then we became neighbors in Dangriga. He lived at his family house, and I rented a house beside his family house, and this relationship rekindled, and he's like, Desi, your dad is no longer here, so I'm your father, I have to take up that fatherly role. And he looked out for all my children. I have 4 children. Quite honestly, until we rekindle that relationship, I was not someone or an average churchgoer. I never even baptized my children. And so he's like, Desi, we need to baptize those children because you want them to enter into the kingdom of God. And we sat and we discussed this, and I'm like, okay then. Although he was a bishop, I still call him Uncle Larry or Father Larry. And so we discussed this baptism, and we had a private baptism ceremony for my 4 children.
He loved pork chops. A lot of people didn't know that. So when he went to visit my mom, he said I would stop by every time he travels in Belize City and say, you know, obvious, I want pork chops. Eventually, getting into the priesthood, I noticed he stopped eating pork chops, which I don't know why. Bishop was like a father figure to me during my time, especially attending school at SGSE. I did not grow up with a father. However, he died 1 month before I was born, and Bishop was very close with him. All my stories that I would ever heard about my father would be through Bishop. So during my time attending SGSE in 2022, when I went to St. John's College Junior College, Bishop would explain to me certain things that my father would did during the time he was alive and how they used to interact. Every evening when I would come from school, it would be me meeting Bishop in his chapel praying. And that's when I would enter and just sit there. And then eventually would go into the room where he just usually relaxes. Another unique thing that I noticed about Bishop was that he would eventually just sit me down and talk to me about life. We would go on top of the building where we stayed by the churches, and he would go and walk his dog in the evenings. Every evening when we go and walk his dog, he would run with his dog, which was unique. A lot of people never probably saw Bishop running. And that's when I would go with him, feed the dog every evening. And this was the time when he started to do confirmation. So he was really busy, and that's when I had to take up the role of taking care of the dog alongside Blaine. That's the security that he had there. And my car was broken into, surprisingly, from the persons who were staying on the street sides and all of that. And Bishop had mentioned to me, don't worry about it, he's gonna speak to them. And surprisingly, they explained why they did it. They were just hungry, and so he would feed them in the evenings.
And I believe that whatever you give to God's church to receive it in some way, as a blessing for you. It's not just giving. As the Word of God says, you freely give, you freely receive, and what you give for God, as Jesus told his disciples, whatever you've given up for me, you're going to get back 100 times more of what you've given.
Me and my uncle would sit in the evening, and many times I would actually be crying because I never knew who my dad was, and my sister and my brother had the privilege of growing up with him. So for me, it was a little bit more unique, only a mother figure in the household. So that's where Bishop took up that role. Continuing out through school, the day of graduation, all of us went into the room where he prayed for me before we went to the graduation. And my uncle was surprised because my uncle was in the room, but he was someone who found it weirdly. He's still trying to be convinced into what religion is about. But the day when Bishop prayed, he was in shock. He was in awe because he's like, that's a true man of God. And that came from someone who's trying to find who God is. So we went, and then my uncle was like, wow, I don't know what to say.
When I was ordained, I was the only young clergy. All the other priests, diocesan priests, they were all seniors. We're talking about all the way up to Bishop O.P. Martin, Bishop Doric Wright, Father Lazarus Augustine. He had passed earlier, but it was like Father Kurt Casibir, Father Calixtus Cayetano, Father Noel Leslie, who's still with us, Father Melio Chi, Bishop Lawrence Nicasio himself. They were more senior priests, and I was the only young priest. I truly believe that Bishop Lawrence's ministry as a bishop is providential. It is God's work. He was one of the last, those senior priests, and became our chief shepherd of the diocese that brought in these younger priests, the younger diocesan priests. We have 4 young diocesan priests that he embraced. He knew how to embrace, including myself when I was a younger priest, and he brought us on board. He made sure that we are brothers as diocesan priests, local priests, serving our own people. He was very much aware of that. We talk about it. When he and I used to sit down and talk, he talked about it. He was concerned that they are coming from a different way of life in the U.S., coming to adapt to serve our people in the level they are. And he was happy that they adapted. Now they're serving, they are doing wonders. They're loved by our people. So Bishop Lawrence knew how to embrace that. I think it was Providence that gave him that grace to be able to do that before he departed, including myself. I was instrumental in that as well. All that was his love and care for vocations. And that comes from his heart for love for his people. As a shepherd provide his shepherds for his sheep.
The Holy Father appointed as the Bishop of Belize, City and Belmopan, I believe was pretty much interested in getting our family ministry going. And Bishop Martin tried the same thing, trying to focus pretty much on family ministry. And I believe that Bishop Larry tried his best to do that too.
The month of the family is upon us. And I feel so assured that you have been meeting and planning your parish program of activities to celebrate June, Family Month. As I visit your parishes, I cannot help but observe the great calculated efforts that you make to live as a family. I observe the effort you make to be present to each other as family.
We don't know really what was affecting a person at a particular time. He was always, as a bishop, you have duties. You have to be traveling here, there, and everywhere, all over the country. And he had to be dealing with all of those matters the best way he possibly could. He did meet with the general clergy in the diocese for meetings and present matters of concern to us. We tried to cooperate as best as we possibly could with him.
In Belize, my concern is always helping people to grow in faith and to serve God, because there's a tendency to think that there's something or someone better than God in this world, and so we stray. I could work on getting people more involved in the life of the church and making that commitment to God, to His church, because we find ourselves committed to so many other things and there's not that commitment to God at all. And hopefully we'll have people who are strong believers, people who are faithful to their church. They will say, I'm named Christian, but I am also an active Christian when it comes to living my faith and serving my church and serving my God.
Bishop Lawrence Episcopal ministry had several areas that he was trying to work on. Definitely that was very visible was vocations, family, the youth. He again tried to revive the youth office. All the other areas, liturgy, prayer life, Catholic education. He was very close to the Catholic institutions in our country. He was very close to our primary schools through the GM. Bishop Larry comes from a family. He's a family man. Met a few of his family from Dangriga, those in also around. That I believe allowed him to pass that on to his people. He, as our spiritual father, he was able to manifest that in the way he wanted to lead us, to guide us. He instituted Family Month, that image of the Holy Family, the nucleus of the church. John Paul II said it, the domestic church, the family, father, mother, children. So he instituted that every June. So in vocations, going into family, it's inseparable. You could see that relation there. Vocations come from family. And Bishop wanted strong Christian families. He was excited. We could see that in his messages for families and his homilies. He would inject there.
Our priests from our own homes, they don't fall from the sky. They come out of our homes. They leave their fathers and mothers and give their lives to the Lord, to His church.
The need for vocations, we would always talk about Dangriga, the vocations among the Garifuna people. He was very much concerned. Down south, he said, the north is producing vocations. So we needed to work. Up to his last moment, he was concerned for that.
Many times, it was one of his main goals. He wanted it dearly, badly, because he was struggling when it comes to like manpower, especially when it comes around 19th of November. He would go to New York for the celebration. They would want him in LA, then he would flew to LA, then to be in Dangriga for the 19th celebration, then to be in Belize City. He would tell me, my brother, I'm getting tired. I'm trying to see how I could get my Garifuna youths, my Garifuna people from various Garifuna communities through Dangriga to get in to assist me, to help me, because I can't be here and there. As a matter of fact, later on, he could be in New York and LA annually, so he decided to do one this year, and the next year, the other state, like California and New York. Those two main states, he used to go every 90, but around 90 was one of the times he would always make serious comment, and he would mention it in church. He would go to these villages to do other work, and he would preach and talk about it. But that is one of his main goal in his journey, to see his young Garifuna priests so that they could not just assist in him, but be a part of the mission.
As family, people of God, we gather bishops, priests, religious, to celebrate the life of a servant of God, Bishop Osman Peter Martin. In one of his messages to bishops, Pope Francis says, this was a message on the 19th of September 2013, you are not bishops for yourself or to serve yourselves, but to serve the flock that has been entrusted to you, and to serve it to the point of laying down your life like Christ the Good Shepherd.
Because of the way we are being brought up now and the way we are bringing up children, the kids are more interested in worldly things versus godly things. I think the home has a lot to do with it. The way we were brought up, it was so easy to think of being a priest or being a nun because there weren't a lot of distractions then. But now there are so many distractions, so many worldly things. I think that contributes a lot to why the youth's not in tune with religion.
He saw the entire church as a family. He transmitted that to us in his last message last December in our annual Christmas lunch with priests and religious. He told us, I clearly remember that image of oneness, to be one family, working with people from the south to the north. We're all one family.
Here in Orange Walk, when he was already bishop, we started to develop something with him whereby from the first month of every year, Bishop, do you have a theme for us for the marriage celebration that we will do that culminates in the ending of June? So from January here in Orange Walk, we start to get ready. Waiting for the theme. I'll have it for you in a couple of days. So when we get the theme, that is the theme that we bring up to our people and we start to work around that. Before or coming to the culmination in June, we tie it up with one big mass. And everybody wants to know if Bishop is coming. Oh man, everybody start to get happy. And when we would do a mass, we can't even do it at church. We would have to do it like at Muffles Auditorium, where it can house over 700 people. And that's how big it was. So in Orange Walk, coupled with that, we have two big events that we call it Reunión de Pueblos, whereby all the villages unite. And that happened twice a year, one in the beginning of the year, just in the Easter time, and one in November. So the marriage one became the third one. Bishop was so happy because it would be something independent, something that he wanted, something that reflected all the years that he wanted. And so he would come and celebrate it. The last one that he came to celebrate for us was when we asked him to come at the village of Agaspa Village. Well over 600 and its families that come. And I believe that Father Larry was happy to see how this work that started out from 95, just when he was already bishop, this is going beyond the 2017. He would come and he would meet our people before the mass, after mass. He would see the different priests that would come and expound and close off the mass on that theme that we wanted the families to hear. When he saw all this work, he was so happy, that the people, the marriage ministry of Orange Walk managed to do all this, bring it together, give it a closure with his blessings. And so he felt much was achieved because many families were being touched. I'm touched by this great guy.
Well, let's go back a bit. Bishop Martin was pretty much interested in family life also. Now, you have to remember that Bishop Martin and Nicasio, they were related. So perhaps he realized that this was something that Bishop Martin pushed. Family life in Belize needed uplifting. I need to carry this on. It's some good families that society becomes better. If the family is not strong, there goes the society. And some families that we get vocations. Again, all of that could have been a part of the mindset that moved him to say, I need to focus. And it was a good thing. Because imagine every year in June, the country is getting an opportunity to realize, we do need to focus on the family. We celebrate the Feast of the Holy Family every year after Christmas. But go away from that to a particular month and say June. But June is a month when people get married and so forth, right? All of that could have been a part of the inspiration about it to say, well, let's focus on family life, because we're promoting something that eventually you'll see some kind of action being taken as time goes along.
It was on the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. I had a missed call from him. It was July. I knew he was in the US. He went for vacation. but also he wanted to see a doctor. That summer, Bishop Larry was really, really bad. He called me, he told me the bad news. I was the first one to hear about it. He didn't want anyone to know about it.
I started my bachelor's degree, so I mentioned to him that I had to start to commute, and he noticed that it did take a toll on me commuting, and up to now I still do so now. He mentioned to me, EJ, just go and rent somewhere until I come back into the country. This was 2023 of August. So I started to rent, and he sent Blaine after me to, help me out with certain things. And that's when he mentioned to me, EJ, I'll be in the country October. I think no one knew that Bishop came into the country that time. So he came October and said he needs to fix his computer. So that's when I came, because I'm the IT guy for the family, and I fixed his computer, do what I need to do, and he like, EJ, I got hacked. They hacked his emails and all this stuff. So we were in the process of recovering everything. And Bishop mentioned to me, said, EJ, I'll be back again, but I don't know when he's on treatment. So when I saw him when he came in that condition, that's when I realized that something is wrong, and he didn't tell me. And that's when he mentioned that he had cancer. And I was like, okay, so you're finished with treatment? And he's like, yes, I'm going through the treatment and everything.
He was never really open. All right, I'm ailing this much. He would text me every morning, or I would text him, and I recall, all right, I messaged him in November, and he did not reply. I told my mom, something wrong, because it's not like Father Larry not to respond, Even if it's a daily message, good morning or something like that, we would always exchange messages every day. Not a single day passed and we would not message each other, or he would not message me, or I would not message him. So I knew something was kind of wrong.
I was torn apart. I was concerned, and then started that difficult journey for him. He was away for over 2 years, about 2 years. And it was difficult for him to leave his diocese. Of course, he was in touch via phone and Zoom meetings. And at the same time, when I used to visit him, I was able to see that he struggled. A couple times I visited him, went with him to the cancer center and so on, assisted him. Even when he was able to come back, I remember he came back last summer, I went to get him, bring him back, took him back to the US. So he asked me precisely, I need you to come with me, I need you to go back with me. And I was happy to do that. As my bishop, but also my friend, brother. I was very happy to do that with him. Towards the ends of his life, we were aware, I was aware, his close friend Rick in the US was aware, some of the bishops of the Caribbean were aware, a few persons here in Belize were aware that he would not make it. And so we decided to bring him back, and that was one of his wishes. Bishop Larry had 3 wishes that he wanted to fulfill, and I'm happy to say that he did. The first one was to return back home.
Bishop also mentioned to me, EJ, when I do come back in the country, by God's will, I will be here for your graduation, for your bachelor's. I said, okay, uncle. He came back December, and this is when I heard he's back into the country.
So we worked hard, we prepared his return to Belize in December last year, 2023. But yet we were not able to place him in his residence. He was excited to go back to his house in North Front Street, but he was not ready for one issue. So we placed him at the Palote Convent. The sisters have an infirmary that was able to house him for a few days.
I was literally the first person who tried to rush to Belize City. I took a flight. I had to do a surgery for my dental, and I said I'm going to go to my uncle. So I just flew here in Belize City because of the time span that I had. And I went to look for him. He was staying at the Palote High School. And I went there and I saw Bishop in a wheelchair, couldn't walk. And he saw me and he quickly, gave me an eye, like, just be calm. He already saw the worriedness in my eye, and I'm like, uncle, so I've been communicating with you online, but you never told me about you not being able to walk. You just said that your speech is slowly going and it hurts. So I was surprised seeing him in such condition. I said, uncle, so what's the result of this? That entire morning, he had his caretakers there, but he told them, you know what, my nephew is here, just let him be, he'll be with me and moving me around. So I was pushing him around the entire place where he was being taken care of. And he took me upstairs into his room. I noticed every time he's moving, he has like something under his chair. He's moving and he's like, EJ, but he never complained. And that's what I found unique. He never complained that he was in pain. He always just looked joyous.
His second wish was to return to his residence, and it was fulfilled. We were able to prepare his residence. He was there for about more than a week. And the third one was to go back to his beloved Dangriga.
So he was on video call with my mom, and that's when my mom asked Bishop, how you doing? And Bishop replied, I'm doing great. I'm still here. And my mom looked at him and said, Bishop, so when you plan to come to Dangriga? He said, anytime soon.
We work on it, all the details. Remember, he was not in a good shape to travel, but we did all we can.
What I found unique when he did come to Dangriga, this is when I realized he started to deteriorate more in his health. He had to be on oxygen now, and all these things were starting to get to him.
December 27th, when he came to my house, and I literally did not know he was dying. He never disclosed that, oh, I'm fine, you know. He came, he did a mass in Dangriga. He wanted to give back to his community. When I saw him, he went to my house as usual, the first house, himself along with his nurse. He had a nurse and he was on oxygen, so he could not come inside the yard or come inside the house. And I literally cried when I saw him in that state. I said, you never told me you were this sick. He said, I didn't want you to worry, because he knew that minute things bother me, and he didn't want me to worry.
Happy. He had a beautiful mass with his people. His family were there. It was a beautiful, memorable send-off with him there. He was able to say a message at the end in Garifuna. People were laughing. People were enjoying his presence. People were very excited to have him there.
And I was there that night. And my uncle saw me. I was literally, instead of crying, instead of laughing like others with joy and be glad that he's there, I was there crying. And if they look back at the video, they asked me why. I said, because no one would ever see that he's actually in pain. They know he's in pain, but he doesn't show it. He never complained. He just stayed right there and take the pain. He would never let us show any sign that he had pain.
When the mass was over, my brother and I, we went outside, we met him, and we pushed his wheelchair for him to get back into his vehicle.
And I looked at him when we went to the car, me and my sister, and we spoke to him. He said, Uncle, so what's up? And he was breathing heavily. So I told him, Bishop, what are you going to do? And the priest at the time never knew I was really close to him. So they were like, oh, no one can come. And he's like, no, leave them. And then that's when one of the other priests, who's aware that I'm Bishop's nephew, told him that's Bishop's literally one of his closest family members, so let him go. And I went to him and he's like, I'm right here, I'm good. And they put oxygen and they drive back through the coastal road to Belize City.
I told my brother, we have to go and see Father Larry tomorrow. Like, go to Belize City so we could see him. And we tried, like, the universe was not in our favor. We couldn't find a spare for this vehicle. We couldn't. So I'm like, oh.
5 days later, he passed. Bishop Lawrence Nicasio. Almost every day, even to the last moment that he passed, he had requested I stay next to him.
New Year's night, I messaged Bishop and I noticed the message did not go through, because every time we would keep in communication, but I noticed from Christmas Day he was in no communication with me, so I already knew something was up. So I was like, Uncle, Happy New Year's, I'm coming to see you tomorrow, which was the New Year's morning. Now, I got ready. Before exiting the house, my mom stopped me and she's like, do you know anything, how you feel this morning? I said, good, I'm gonna go to Uncle now. And she just looked at me and she said, You haven't seen the news? And then I went back into the room and same time I received a call from the secretary. She's like, Edward Sadley, Bishop died. I was like, wait, what? I received more calls than I would be concerned that something was definitely wrong, because everybody was concerned about me because of the closeness that I was with him. I was very close to him, and I got, for that entire day, probably over 50 calls because they're like, EG, are you sure you're okay? And I'm still going. I said, no, he's there, because I was just messaging him, but he didn't receive the message. And they said, no, he did pass away.
New Year's morning, I got the message that Father Larry passed away. I went silent for a while, like literally went silent. I'm like, I lost another father. My dad died when I was 15 years old. And that in itself was kind of heartbreaking. My brother, Edward, never knew my dad. He was born exactly a month after my dad passed away. So he never knew my dad. He would only hear stories from us.
At his funeral day now, moving on, I didn't even complete the course at Price Box. I wasn't in the mental capacity to complete it, and I went now home. And the day of his funeral, I went in Belize City for the first part of his funeral. And whilst there, they literally had to come and move me. I was not going to move from him, holding his hand in the casket. And I couldn't stop crying because my uncle never complained, never said anything to the sort that, you know what, I'm gonna die, but he knew. But he never mentioned it to me. I heard persons talking about, you know, Bishop isn't really in the great state that he was at first, but he still have great hope. And I mentioned to him, Uncle, like, I would want you to tell me what's going to happen. But he never mentioned anything to me. And a very curious part about it was that at his funeral, I was one of the last person to actually touch him, even when they get ready to put him in his grave.
When it comes to Bishop Larry, I want to ensure that his legacy lives on in terms of the faith that he carried. And the one way I can truly do that is to ensure that my children, they grow up in faith. In my heart, for me, he'll never be forgotten, but I want to ensure that others, they don't forget him. He has done so much for a lot of people, and he has done so much for the country of Belize. I want him to be remembered for the humble, kind, and loving individual that he was. One of the things that I could always remember in one of our conversations, he would talk about the district of Orange Walk, how the people were so loving, how they were so generous to him, how they were so kind to him. I want them to never forget that he loved them, and he told me about that. How people would welcome him, you know, even before he was a bishop, even when he was a priest there, they welcomed him.
You know, so when he came to Orange Rock, like the reunion of Pueblos, you know, and then also this marriage ministry, I mean, that is when, you know, it started to play out here in Orange Walk. Any day in Orange Walk, and the pastor that come to Orange Walk, the masses, the mass attenders are really packed, right? To the point whereby we have to have different masses in weekends. And this is the inheritance, the legacy that we all leave our children, You can see it as a tradition today that Orange Kenyans do go to Mass. After having said everything about Father Larry, I didn't want this to be about us, but our first two boys, they were the first altar boys for Father Larry. It was inspiring, very inspiring. He also inspired us to work, for San Pedro, for Rosal, or in Joa, and to bring people to even work for Father Larry. He has done something so special for Joa.
He's a kind-hearted person. That's why he was so loved in the country and even internationally. I know some people in Joa crying because they know the great help he has done to them. He has touched their hearts, their lives forever.
To visit what we call his St. Louis family, which was us and other friends from the seminary that he had met and grown close to. And probably within the last 15 to 18 years, he would start to stay at our house. We had Bishop Larry's room at our house, and so we would be his home base as he visited everybody and came to visit every year. So we've had a long, involved relationship, but it was all very loving and very friendly and fun.
He touched a lot of people in the United States. Everyone.
Yes. We're just so happy that the country of Belize shared him with us in the U.S.
Bishop Larry's tenure as bishop was very short, shorter than Bishop Wright. Of course, Bishop Martin was longer. I gave the homily at his first memorial mass in Dangriga, 3 days before his funeral mass. I opened the homily using his Episcopal motto. And I believe that was his entire life as a bishop. Very simple, down-to-earth person, very close to God, very close to his people. He wanted us to walk with him, walk humbly with God. That was his entire life with Bishop Larry. Even when he was struggling, when he had difficulty, treatments, his sickness, that man truly manifested smile, humility, even in that moment that he was embracing the cross. He lived that. His entire legacy, I would say, is of that. Humbly serving each other, caring for one another, building up brotherhood, building up as a family. He discouraged greatly conflicts, indifferences. I think he had in his own nature a way how to resolve conflicts. Among my off-tide, I've never seen him upset, never blurting out any words that apparently he was upset, but he would always find ways to calm, to deal with difficulties. And I learned that from him. But his entire legacy is centered on that, walking humbly with God in all aspects, with family, in our prayer life, in our daily reaching out relationship with one another, as a big family, as a country.